Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the subcommittee. When I told my daughter that I was going to be on a panel with such an illustrious group of performers, she suggested that this would be a future SAT question: who does not belong in this group? What can you do? But I will do my best. And I'm here as President and CEO of the Reinvestment Fund to support the $200 million appropriation for NEA. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Americans for the Arts on this Arts Advocacy Day. And as someone who's invested now more than $1 billion in some of America's poorest communities, my interest in a well-funded NEA is not only a matter of my appreciation for the intrinsic value of art, but it's also rooted in what I've encountered over 2 decades of investing and developing. The theme of my testimony is really pretty simple. Arts and culture are important to the development prospects of older American cities and communities, and the work of the NEA ought to be viewed as one aspect of a more integrated approach to renewal and development that focuses on maximizing knowledge and creativity throughout our society. I'm pleased that the NEA was included in the Recovery and Reinvestment Act, passed by the Congress and signed by President Obama. Its inclusion ought to be viewed as a recognition of the importance of art and culture to our economic infrastructure and not as a mere side event to the economy. In fact, as we've heard today, arts and culture are a vibrant part of the real economy. 2 decades of research have demonstrated the economic role of arts and culture in urban and metropolitan economies. It is a sector that can be quantified in jobs, sales, and real estate value. And Americans for the Arts has taken a leadership role in doing this kind of quantification. By doing so, they have given arts and culture a voice in the public realm. Our meeting here today is really a testament to this recognition. We live in a nation that has sometimes overvalued things like complex financial instruments, while undervaluing the creativity of ordinary Americans. We do so at our own peril. For the past 15 months, I've been a board member of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, and of course I have to say here now these are my words, not the words of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. It's been a remarkable experience. Interestingly, it has given me a new appreciation for the creative sector. A financial crisis such as the one we are undergoing forces us to ask very basic questions about what is important. What have we overvalued for short-term returns, and what have we undervalued that could result in longer-term gain if we pay more attention? Today we have an opportunity and I think an obligation to rethink this. You know, we've spent a lot of time thinking about systemic risk as it relates to the bailout of individual companies, and yet we all know that various parts of civil society and therefore our democracy have a systemic risk that have accrued to them. My belief that arts and culture are critical to the regeneration of urban places comes from decades of development experience. My organization has financed more than 18,000 housing units, 7.5 million square feet of commercial space, hundreds of businesses, as well as real estate for urban charter schools and child care centers. We are rebuilding communities in Philadelphia and Baltimore, as well as very poor small towns like Chester, Pennsylvania, and Camden, New Jersey. In many of those communities, arts and cultural institutions serve as the key incubators for development. Let me cite a good example. We financed not long ago the Crane Arts Building, partially through the use of federal new market tax credits. A former plumbing supply building, it now has 120,000 square feet of artist work and performance space in a very poor and partially depopulated section of North Philadelphia. It is occupied by artists and designers of every imaginable kind. It symbolizes how a once obsolete manufacturing building can be a site for new product development. My hunch is that important product development in the 21st century is more apt to come from the industrial arts, design, and techno-media businesses emerging in renovated mills than from the fast money trails of global finance. Just as importantly, Crane is a hub of social engagement. Performances are held there that draw people from throughout the region, NEA support, for example, for events such as the Philadelphia Fringe Festival with performances that are held at Crane, help integrate that community back into the regional economy. It becomes a regional asset once again. Audiences that would have never ventured into that area now attend events, and as a consequence, they rethink the boundaries of their personal social geography. Today, new buildings nearby are under renovation as the vision of the Crane entrepreneurs has become an economic success and a community anchor. I could give dozens of other examples. The key point here is that NEA support for new production and installations is a business complement to the rebuilding of commercial and residential real estate in many communities. This is certainly true of many new projects that we're involved in right now. You can think of a movie studio that we're building near Chester, Pennsylvania, artist workspace complex not far from the train station in Baltimore that we just got finance for, a music center in downtown Wilmington, Delaware. I'm particularly fond of the Wilmington project as it is a replication of the successful World Cafe Live, a wonderful performance space in Philadelphia that provides art and music classes, among other things it does, for public school kids not able to use school-based facilities due to funding cuts. This is very common in American cities and in rural areas. The arts centers are connecting to a broader audience, not only globally, but locally. The famous Clay Studio, for example, in Philadelphia, a famous worldwide renowned ceramics center, runs a clay mobile that travels to homeless centers throughout the city, providing educational support for children of homeless families. Artist work and performance spaces become community centers where a cross-section of Americans socialize, recreate, learn, and produce. The social network value of these spaces is critical to urban change and development. They create what economists refer to as positive externalities, value that cannot be captured immediately through a price, but have benefits that accrue to the community and to the public at large. A well-funded NEA is important to the economy of the nation both directly and indirectly. The direct impact is counted in familiar economic terms, and the indirect impact can be valued through longer-term leverage. The longer-term leverage turns out, in my experience as an investor and developer, to be critical to the placemaking process that re-energizes older towns and cities. Said differently, the rebuilding of our great cities is linked to how we creatively repurpose the built environment and transform old liabilities into future assets. This is what the creative sector does so well. Governments organize streams of funding across a spectrum of organizational and content silos. Housing, commerce, transportation, health, and so on. An unfortunate consequence of this division is the way it structures our sense of reality and our notion of possibilities. This gets reinforced, of course, by the constituencies of each silo, who support the reproduction of the current system, as in most instances, it is their only choice. Art and culture funding has been on the defensive for many years, as that chart demonstrates to my left. And it is natural that we would be here today to advocate on behalf of what is a very small part of the federal budget dedicated to arts and culture. But I would like to suggest that we expand federal support for creativity by infusing it within other parts of the budget. Take the opportunities that are afforded by transportation, parks, and housing investment. They offer immense possibilities for integrating art and public life. Many cities have a 1% or a 2% rule, where every development project that uses public subsidy dedicates a percentage, 1% or 2% of the development budget, to public art. What if we thought about budgets in these terms and saw to it that the next generation of American infrastructure could transcend the false dichotomy between function and aesthetic possibility?